thank you. It's like a burst of energy coming in here with you two.
Oh,
So
good.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, that's something coming from you. This book is brilliant. Read it yesterday, cover to cover. Awesome. I mean, we've been around. We've been alongside you for everything you've done. We were here before you were there. And we're all still here now. But you just forget until... Was it like that for you when you started to chronicle all these things you've done?
Yeah, and the kids, like my middle one, was doing about Antarctica in school. And he said, he started asking me questions, and you pull on that thread, don't you? And I thought, if I don't write this down now, if I don't put it in a book, I'm going to lose the ability to go, listen, kids, there was this one time where, when they tell me that I'm old and boring, I'll be like, no.
It's never going to happen.
Look at this book. There was this one time. And it kind of, reminded me what a wonderful opportunity and experience it was. And I think when you're in it, you don't want to go, oh, I did this and I did that. But it was cool. So I just
some people do, don't they? Some people sort of wear their sort of experiences on their sleeve, and it's all good. Some people love it and they have all these stories, and you think, oh my goodness me, you're the kind of person that so much has happened to. I think, no, you're just somebody who loves remembering them and telling the stories about them. For others of us who are just so busy doing it, you go, well, I don't know, maybe I've got some stories, maybe I haven't. But you have in spades. I didn't know a few things that are in the book. I didn't know about all that time in France that you spent. I knew that you were in France, but I didn't realise it was such a departure. And, it was a big decision for you to stop what you were doing for a while. And, would you ever get back there? Also, I didn't know that you were brought up on a farm. So I didn't know all this. Didn't know your dad was a farmer. It's brilliant, man.
Oh, do you know what? People love that. People get... Farming when I was a kid was not cool. It was the farm kids. Now people are into where food comes from and nature and the natural world. So farming's almost had like a rebirth. Yeah. And people think it's cool all of a sudden that I'm from a farm. My dad's like, I told you should have gone into farming with your dad, shouldn't you? Yeah. He's not actually a farmer now. He's an AI man, that also creates a lot of chat.
It's so interesting, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll never forget, I had a big old chat with somebody at the BBC about programmes, and I just ended up talking about my dad and his catalogue of cows and artificial insemination and all that. So, yeah.
But you were super qualified for these farming shows. I had no idea.
Well, it's just fun. And when we're on the farm, people always say, you guys look like friends and family, and it's relaxed. And that's because that's exactly what it is. Often my kids are in the background. We'll be doing stuff on the farm. You can be in the middle of a live link and there's a sheep giving birth behind you and you have to help out because you're there. Or there can be a goat wandering, across the back of set. We always send the most unfarmy floor manager to get the goat when it's got out because it just makes for a good laugh.
That is hilarious. Obviously, there's all the tales about your auditioning for various things, your days in radio, your time on radio, which is also cool, on a breakfast show.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I think that's why I like this industry, because I like talking to people. Yeah. And I think it's a privilege to get to be in people's lives. And I think it gives you great perspective. And that's what the book is. I don't want it to be, there was this one time when I did this wonderful thing and that wonderful thing. For me, this book is about how the heck and why the heck did I do that? And this is what I learned along the way. When I was 20, I thought I knew everything. And then I got to 30 and thought, I knew nothing.
Yeah, and then you get to a point where you don't know everything. And that's when you know something.
And that's what this book is. I wanted to take from each random challenge the things that I learned, the things that were useful, and share them. And they're easy things.
Yeah, so Helen Skelton, In My Stride, lessons learned through life and adventure. I didn't realise you were so young when you had your own breakfast show. Youngest ever?
Youngest on the BBC network, yeah.
Tell us about that.
I mean, it was a baptism of fire. So I'd gone into the newsroom. I was the only person in there who hadn't gone to university and done a journalism degree. So, the BBC colleagues at the time were like, you'll never get a job here unless you do this degree. But that wasn't me. I didn't want to do that. Not everybody wants to go to uni, and I didn't want to. But what I had in my arsenal was that I knew the area, I knew people, I knew stories. So I just used that and had content all the time. I knew who was getting picked for the local football club because my brother worked there. Yeah. I knew what schools were shutting down because my mum worked in teaching. Yeah. So I had a wealth of stories, then got offered the breakfast show, which, when you're like 22 and
22 years old, doesn't happen.
Getting up at 3 a.m. every day and... Yeah, it was a baptism of fire. It was probably too soon, but I was glad it happened.
Well, no, it wasn't too soon because it is what it is. It was what it was, and we are where we are. We're all exactly where we're supposed to be. That's the deal, isn't it?
It's the best way to look at it.
So then that ended, and then you came down to London. That was hilarious, wasn't it? Straight away.
So because that ended, it was and it's embarrassing. Basically, I got the sack just because they wanted to change it, and then you can't really go back into the newsroom, can you? So I was like, fine, I'll off to London. I'll go to London. Yeah. Nowhere to go. Didn't know anyone. Yeah. Was trying to get a flat share and had people saying to me, as part of the rent, you have to go out for dinner with us once a month, which was weird. So that was a total baptism of fire, and I knocked on doors everywhere. Sky. I ended up working at Sky.
Yeah.
I ended up working in radio, in news rounds, and got the most work at news rounds. But I had nothing, you know. I'd gone from having a boyfriend and a house and a job to then arriving in London with nothing.
Yeah.
And I still can't work out the tube. So it was definitely over my head. But it was a good time because I ended up at Blue Peter at a time when the boss was, and it's fair to say, it was a bit bonkers. You know, I suggested bonkers things and he said, why not? And
so wasn't it true that somebody you were working with said, if you don't go to audition for Blue Peter, something like, I'm going to send you to Mars or something?
I was working on Newsround as a freelancer and I was doing all the sport.
Yeah.
So Fabio Capello, and as a children's TV presenter in sport, it's brilliant. Dan Rowan's there asking about the back four. I'm asking, who do you text first if you win? So obviously they want to talk to me, which was great. Because if you're a footballer, you want the questions about your favourite sandwich, don't you? Rather than who do you think should be captain. So it was going well. And that's what was happening.
So simple.
I never forget, I went to an England press conference and I ate an apple from what I thought was the buffet, and it wasn't. It was an art installation. And I had to shake everybody's hand, like Michael Owen with his apple core in my hand that I didn't want
to. Well, you look, it was a real apple, not a
Yeah.
fiberglass apple or something like that.
And so I was loving News Round, wanted to go to the Olympics, and Blue Peter asked me to audition. And I said, singing and dancing on telly.
Not for me.
Not for me. But yes, Sinead Rocks looked me in the eye and said, if you don't go for that audition, I'll sack you.
Yeah.
Because it's the best gig. And I went and auditioned and nearly got kicked off that because as a Blue Peter presenter, you have to do an assault course. And there's me sitting there. Sorry, I feel like this story's going on forever. You have to do the assault course. And I thought, brilliant, I'll smash this. And I got the quickest time. And every time they shoved a camera in my face to ask how I was feeling, I was like, I'm in the middle of something here. Get lost.
Yeah.
So I legged it through the assault course, not realising it wasn't about the time, was it? It was about taking the viewer on the journey and
of course.
all of that.
Yeah.
So they said, go back, do it again. And I did and got the job.
Yeah. And then 5 years unfolded of like the greatest time and all these opportunities.
I just think you never know what's around the corner.
Yeah.
So for me, I knew I was on that show and I wanted to make it as big as possible. Someone suggested the Amazon. I said, let's do it all. Admittedly, I didn't know how big it was when I said that. Ignorance is bliss.
3 countries, a whole continent, 2,018 miles.
Yeah, I was like, oh, right, yeah.
42, and you had to do it in 42 days because even though you were doing it for Blue Peter, they would only give you 6 weeks off anyway.
Yeah, oh gosh, yeah. So we just...
But hang on, but I'm doing it for you.
Yeah, but we took the distance and we divided it.
Yeah.
So there were guys who were like, right, you've got to do 70 odd miles a day.
Yeah.
And that's if it goes well. And they'd have random days where they'd say... there's a brilliant team of people that bring that together, like Matt and Eric and Gow and all the rest of it. And they'd say to me, come on, I think you can get a world record today. I think you should really push it. You can really go for 80 miles. And I'd be like, all right. And like throwing up on myself and blisters and sores on my bum and bites. And I'd push it and push it. And they were like, yes, she's paddled that far. We got to a village. We can buy beer. I was like, Jesus, guys.
But also, a couple of days from the end, you knew you were going to do it, didn't you?
Yeah.
And you couldn't finish at the end of the Amazon because there's nothing there. So you had to pick a village?
Yes. So we picked a random village in the middle of nowhere. And I think now, because of the internet and life, you think the world is small and you forget. We were meeting people on that river who had never met people outside of their family.
Crazy.
We were meeting people for who coffee and sugar was worth more than gold.
Yeah.
And so it was the most random. If you're a kid and you think of an adventure, that was it. Fish jumping over the sides and landing in your lap every day. And we had that for dinner. Real pirates coming after you for coffee and sugar.
Yeah.
Real, people checking your passports to see what jabs you've got. And if you haven't got the right jab, you've got to go to a town to find a doctor to get yellow fever. It was the most immersive adventure. And I didn't want it to end, because I
know, I remember you saying.
Conditioned to do it. I didn't
but
know
you felt
different.
like that about a few things to do with Blue Peter, didn't you? Didn't you and your mate, one of your co-presenters, you got back to London and then you just carried on the train to the terminus and come back again because you just didn't want to be home because you thought, because that's the end of what we've just done now.
And it's a moment in your life,
What was
isn't
that
it?
trip?
That was, I think we'd been in Italy.
Yeah, right.
And so we used to do these summer trips where you just go away for 6 weeks. And what a sweet spot in telly. Our job was to excite kids about the world.
Yeah.
What's better than that? You know, and there's a brilliant poem. I keep referring to it, but you love it. Tony Walsh, on the 60th anniversary of Blue Peter, does a brilliant poem on YouTube, and it's 8 minutes long, but it's brilliant because it sums up what Blue Peter is, and it's what it'll always be for me. Right. That show was talking about sustainability before sustainability was a thing.
Yeah.
That show was telling kids to be whoever they want to be before transgender was a discussion.
Yeah.
And I just think that at the heart of it is what that show is, and that's why I'll be forever proud to be part of it.
So what was hardest, the run in the desert? Because I know you've run loads of London marathons, you've run the New York Marathon as well. It's all in the book, everyone. But you did run 78 miles in a desert in Nairobi, and you had to do it within 24 hours. That sounded pretty horrific because, you get a sense from a chapter, from the flavour of the chapter, how hard things were. I thought, oh, this sounds like it was really hard.
Because that was the first real big challenge.
Right.
Like, you don't know how tough you are until the going gets tough, do you?
Yeah.
And I hadn't done any of those big challenges. And that was the first time that I'm not a runner. Like, when I signed up to do that, I ran 10 minutes and my dad went, do you think this is a good idea? Because I thought my lungs were hanging out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And I was like, Dad, I'm in it now. And I did it because I wanted to prove something to myself.
Yeah.
And I wanted to prove something to the audience, to the kids who were in it with you. And it was awful. I did 80 miles, had to do it in 24 hours. I mean, I was dehydrated, I was hallucinating. Yeah. I was crouching behind the little... And
you were passing all the fridges full of freezing cold Coca-Cola that the crew could have, but you weren't allowed it because you could only drink what you took with you.
Correct. The crew were in the car. And they're like your team, aren't they? I can't say it on radio, but at one point I was broken, I was crying, I didn't think I was going to do it. I was back of the pack. The doctors were popping the blisters on my feet. And they'd all had a bet on the logistics, not whether or not I'd finish it. They had a bet at what point I'd drop out.
Ouchie.
So I was like, you can imagine. Yeah. And I run past Kieran in the van and I watched him opening an ice cold can of Coke. I was like, they had to speed off. So
that's not fair.
It was a quick half marathon, that though, so I was chasing them down.
Yeah. And how a marathon, once you've done something like that, how were marathons after that? Are they easy? Because I don't think marathons are ever easy. I've done quite a few. Vass has done loads. He's done 150-mile races and things like that. But they're never easy, are they?
No. Oh, we were on the start line of a marathon recently, just some fellow Barnes runners and I. And we hadn't really thought about it because we were doing it in memory of a friend of ours. Yeah. And so we were on the start line in Denby's Vineyard.
It's a bit of fun.
And then suddenly we looked at each other and went, hang on, we're about to run a marathon. Yeah. And we hadn't really sort of given it the proper respect. And it was pretty tortuous, actually, because running 26 miles is never easy.
It's always 26 miles. Well, 26.2.
But it was never 20. It's never ever been 26 miles for me. I've only ever done 5 miles lots of times. And it's never easy, but I think that is the point, and that's why I did any of these things. Because life throws things that you don't want to deal with. And I signed up for that marathon because I wanted something so brutally, awfully horrendous that I could go, do you know what? That hurt, but it was fine.
So it's all in there. The boxing's in there as well for comic relief. I forgot about that. I forgot about so much of the stuff you've been through, but you take it on the chin. You won.
Lost a tooth.
Comic relief. And then there's the high wire of Battersea. There's lots of other things as well. We've got to fast forward because we have time pressures, but it's all in the book. Then we fast forward to Strictly, and you suddenly realise, as you're about to dance on Strictly for the first time, this is actually the most nervous you've ever been because it took you by surprise. Again, speaking to what Vass has just said, probably because you thought, look at the things I've done, but you have to give everything the respect it deserves or be prepared for it to come back and punch you in the face.
And I think it's all right to be terrified. It's all right to be absolutely petrified. Yeah. And sometimes we're not used to that, are we?
But you were surprised though, weren't you?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I walked into that room. I mean, that was my background. That was my life, the big studio floors and the cameramen. Yeah. And I couldn't believe that. I was like, they used to say to me, Helen, you look like you don't want to be on that dance floor. And I was like, I don't. I quite like the training room, thank you. I just want to do it by myself. Yeah. Can I just do it on my own? And they're like, no, you've got to do it in front of 12 million people. And again, I just think all those things are good reference points for life. Yeah. I was so, at that point, I was so terrified I couldn't even have a proper conversation.
No, I know. And then your partner said, why don't you be sexy?
My dance partner, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a big point in the book, isn't it? And you put it in uppercase, and it's like, oh, you thought, well, that's a bit of a strange thing to say to me. And he said, well, why? And then you thought, well, I've never felt like that. I've never thought about things like that. And that's been a tipping point in your life. It would seem anyway, because then the rest of the chapter is like you going, oh.
But I think as a grown-up, I mean, who likes going to those courses and staying, you know, when you're going to sit in a circle and you've got to stand up and say something about yourself?
Yeah.
It's quite awful, isn't it, for a lot of us? It's like, got to like turn my skin inside out. And that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And I think I love everything about Strictly, but I went in there and I used to look at the others. And Fleur's my friend, and I used to look at her in the makeup chair, you know, so confidently, like doing TikToks and embracing it all. And I was like, I want to be like that. I want to be that girl.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, I want to be probably like that girl at school that can talk to the boys and wear the short skirts and all that. And I was like, and even, you know, they'd all be like dancing around and having a good time. And I was thinking, why are they so outwardly owning it?
Right.
And what was brilliant piece of advice from Gorka, he kept saying, own it. I was like, I don't know what you mean. I own a house. I own a car. I don't know what you mean. But what he meant was, whatever stage you're in, own it. Because I'd be like, oh my God, my nails are embarrassing. He's like, yeah, of course you've got bad nails because you're a working mum and you haven't got time to get your nails done. Own it. It's fine. Yeah. You don't feel massively sexy and confident in this outfit, in this hair and makeup because it's not yours.
Yeah.
Own it. Fine. It's different for you. It's a challenge. You're turning a new page. And I thought it was brilliantly insightful advice from him.
And so obviously you picked up that baton and you ran with it, and you got all the way to the final. You came second. What were your hopes and dreams for Strictly before you started? How far did you honestly think you'd get?
I honestly wanted to get to Blackpool.
Right.
I wanted to get to Blackpool because I've been on holiday there a million times. I knew my family would come.
Wanted to check you're still the same.
Literally, my kids are devastated I'm not in Strictly this year. Do you know why?
Right, because they want
to go to Blackpool. I was like, I'll take you anyway, babe. And I wanted to get to Blackpool. And then I think once you get past a few weeks in Strictly, I think for me, every week I loved it more and more. And other people maybe felt the competition, but every week I knew this isn't going to last forever. Right. Don't wish it away. Nothing lasts forever, does it?
Right, I see. So you more than met it in the middle in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I just loved it. I watch it now and I'm like, I'm always texting the execs. I'm like, if you need a sub, I'm ready.
Now, this PTSD, what's the Strictly equivalent of PTSD, do you think? Because it's been your year of post-Strictly, hasn't it?
Everybody has it, because I just saw Tom downstairs on his way out.
Yeah,
wonderful Tom.
Yeah.
And he's like, are you watching Strictly? And I was like, yeah.
Of course.
Don't you get more addicted when you've been in it? And he was like, yeah. And he's like, this is the first year he can watch it normally.
Right. Because it's been long enough.
As opposed to going, well, if I was in it, I'd do it like that.
By the way, we've not even touched on the Olympics and Skirtgate and all that kind of stuff that's in there. But it's so cool that you tell all those stories.
Well, I hope people have a laugh and I hope people get something out of it that's useful.
Just speak to that a bit about the whole Olympics.
Oh, the Shortgate. So went to Rio. It was my first gig since becoming a mum. I think lots of parents might feel the same. You know, you have kids. Yeah. Oh, what now? What's happening? Who am I? Shall I work? Shall I not work? All the rest of it. I ended up at the Olympics, my first gig at Rio, and I loved it. We had the best time. Mark Foster, Becky Adlington.
Yeah, I remember.
We were winning medals for fun.
But also, you three were smashing it after
Thank you.
It was great, wasn't it? We talked about it all the time.
I was in Rio. It was a really good atmosphere. Certainly amongst the BBC team. It was great.
It was good fun, and that's what telly should be, shouldn't it? Good people, good stories, good times. And it was really hot, and I wore shorts, and I didn't realise that I genuinely didn't realise the short had our legs in. Fozzie had no shoes on. I had no shoes on. And somebody made a comment about my shorts, and it exploded. Yeah. And
you didn't realise the shot was as wide. You thought it was more of a mid shot, didn't you?
Well, we thought it was a desk because we all had our shoes off under the desk, but we didn't realise our legs were in it.
Right.
And somebody made a comment about my legs, and yes, that exploded. And the next thing I knew, my brother was like, Helen, why is Dad on this morning talking about women being victimised in the media?
That is hilarious, isn't it?
Why is Dad on this morning? I don't know.
And he came out fighting, didn't he? Quite rightly, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, my dad is a Northern dairy farmer, but he is a feminist. He literally was like, why are we talking about what women are wearing? Yeah. We should be talking about what women are doing. Fran Halsall's about to win an Olympic gold.
Was he on Skype or was he on the sofa?
No, on Skype. I can't leave his cows, Chris. Come on. There was journalists turning up at my parents. My mum was making them a cup of tea for Pat photographers because they'd travelled a long way.
That's funny. What's going on now? Tell them what's the latest.
I'm doing a really fun show for the BBC, which will be out in spring, but it means I get to swim in the lake a lot, which is wonderful.
Wow.
Lots of morning live.
Yeah.
Obviously, lots of book stuff. And, I mean, this is the busiest time of year for kids, isn't it? My house is a mecca to Halloween.
Yeah, yeah.
trick-or-treating's going on, countdown to Christmas. So, yeah, lots going on.
Well, good for you. Good for you. Great story, Hal Spells, and long may it continue. You are one of the hardest working people in this business. I mean, it doesn't take a lot because it's not that hard to work at a business, but you do work really hard.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you for always being so lovely and supportive.
No, well, I think you're awesome.
joyous.
I think you're absolutely awesome. Any big expeditions or adventures planned?
No, the stuff I want to do, but I can't obviously go away for a long time because of the kids.
Yeah.
What I love is that the eldest is quite into the outdoorsy stuff like me. So Leo Holding and his wife invited us on a climb, so maybe.
Well, you know, Breaking Dad, Bradley Walsh and his son.
Yes.
Could you do something like that, maybe?
Maybe.
That might be fun.
Oh. My mum and dad keep saying, "Oh, do you think you could do Race Across the World?" I'm like, "Yeah, but you guys have got to look after the kids, so the kids are going to have to
They
come."
go with you or whatever. That'd be fun. As if you're not busy enough. Great to see you again.
Nice to see you.
You are the best. And this book is brilliant. Helen
Thank
Skelton,
you.
In My Stride, Lessons Learned Through Life and Adventure. Thanks to the team. What a lovely week. Thank you to Vassos.